Warning, warning. Effects of the Apple reality distortion field may impact your ability to remain neutral while watching or listening to this show. Now, what is the Apple reality distortion field? I thank you for asking. I think it's best explained, Jason, by covering a few of the current symptoms being reported throughout the United States and potentially into other parts of the world.
Yeah, that'll explain it.
All right, number one is a desire to wear super fancy ski goggles on the subway, on the ski slopes, on trains, on planes, on automobiles,
At the
walking down
gym.
the streets of Manhattan, right?
Right? Playing ping pong.
Yep. Now, two is an uncanny desire to read everything you can or watch every YouTube video about ski goggles, including this show. And this is my favorite one, I think, a feeling of regret that your bank account is not 4K lighter than it was a couple of weeks ago. A
Hopefully not.
desire? Yeah. I hope you're not feeling that one. A desire to constantly refresh the Apple Store to check for in-store pickup availability, and a feeling of disappointment when you look at that super fancy, incredible 4 or 5K monitor that was your best display just last week.
Yeah.
All right. Now, here's the thing, Jason, now that I've mentioned all of these symptoms, do you or anyone in our audience have all of them? Because that's a medical school thing. Every time people go to medical school, they start reading about symptoms of the diseases, and all of a sudden they
Right.
have all of them, right?
Yep. They start identifying those in themselves. I have a couple of them, but I don't think that I'm falling victim to the reality distortion field yet.
Yet.
How
Well,
about you?
we'll talk about that in a second. But I think you either have some of those symptoms or you're rolling your eyes and going, what in the world did he put in his water this morning? And it is just water. Just want to point that out. So now, if any of these apply to you, all I can say is stick around, because this is the Gadgets for Families Tech Show, where we focus on helping all tech nerds to grandpas. Some of
Yep.
us are both, right?
Yep.
Those that are just trying to keep up with these newfangled gadgets, and those that spend way too much time diving deep on them. So we cover all of that. And I'm Greg Cunningham, and I'm one of the tech grandpas hosting this show.
And I'm your host, Jay Benjamin. Thank you for joining us on this Vision Pro focus episode. Sorry we're a little late to the game, but we got some good information here, so stick around.
Yeah, somebody had to go on a cruise. Otherwise, we would have done something on this last week. But we'll
Right.
get to that in a minute, because I want to hear how your cruise went with 4 billion other people. So some of them related
Right.
to you even. So, and if you can't guess from the intro, and Jason gave it away, we're going to be talking about the Vision Pro. There is so much hype and information out there. We're going to try
Yeah.
and condense that down for you. And it's actually going to lead to a topic I've wanted to cover for some time. And that's what I think is Apple's magic sauce on all of this. And that's continuity and their ecosystem. Now,
hmm
we're not going to talk continuity in depth. I think we have that planned for a couple weeks out, when we're going to go through continuity, not just as it pertains to the Vision Pro, but as it pertains to all of the Apple ecosystem. And
Right.
that continuity is what makes all of our Apple gadgets work together. And frankly, it's the thing, if I had to pick one thing, that's probably the one that keeps me absolutely the most in the Apple ecosystem. And so we'll
Right.
talk about that a little bit today, and then some more in a couple of weeks. But
And
I
I
do
feel
want
that's a
to,
little underused too by people
yeah.
with multiple Apple devices. I don't feel like
Mm-hmm.
everyone's really taking advantage of continuity, and they should be.
Yeah, absolutely. So I know I personally, I'm a little bit under the weather. I live in a petri dish, as my in-laws put it, with all the grandkids and stuff running around here. So I apologize, but we're hoping this is week 2 on our new video platform that we're recording
Right.
on. So we'll see how this goes. So don't forget to hit that subscribe or follow button to make sure you get notified of our next video release. We've got some cool things we're going to try over the next week or so. We're not
hmm
going to announce them today. We want to try them first and see if we can actually make them happen. Then we'll talk about them in a future show. But check out the show notes for a bunch of great resources. So, Jason, before we dive into Vision Pro, which is pretty much all we're going to talk about today, even in the
Yep.
post show, and we'll mention that a little bit later, but you went on a cruise, and I was shocked, because normally your spring cruise is the time you get away from all the family. It's
Right.
just
Right.
you and your wife, and you go. And when I asked about that 2 weeks ago, you said there were, what, 27 other people that you
Right.
knew
So
growing on this cruise with you?
That was by my count. So it turned out to be 31 family members. And it wasn't as bad as I was expecting it to be. Right now, there was some things that we would do better next time. Me and my wife, we talked about it. We had some notes. Definitely some things that we would change. Definitely some things that we would do better next time around. And also planning not to do this ever again. For sure, making sure that there's not a next time around. But I saw here you asked about like the tech support and stuff. Surprisingly, there wasn't a lot of support on the
Well, that's
ship.
good.
Yeah, yeah. So I took extra chargers for everyone. Like I took way too many chargers, expecting people to leave chargers. Um, Power bricks. We took an extra power adapter or power strip, one of the little tiny ones that I spoke about, but not much support outside of helping my sister-in-law switch devices on the ship's Wi-Fi. Yeah,
Uh,
yeah. So they only allow, just buy the package and connect everything. You have to do one or
yeah.
two devices at a time, which makes sense. But no, it was mostly playing tour guide the whole time. This was a ship that we had been on several times, and the ports we had been to several times before. So, yeah, just mostly rounding everyone up, making sure everyone's ready to get off of the ship, on the ship, going back and forth to guest services, explaining this is what you need to do. You need to do this, you need to do that. So, yeah, just a lot of general cruise support, but not much tech support, which I was okay with.
Yeah. Yeah. I saw one of the Pop Life videos that got posted that your wife was handing out popcorn saying, even when we're on vacation, people place orders. And I thought that was kind of funny. So,
Right, right. So that last week I was slammed. So not just the people that went with us, but like people just they didn't want to wait. Like you give them an option, like, hey, we're gonna be away for a week. You want to wait till I come back? It'll be fresh. No, no, no. I want it now, even though my event is next week or whatever. So yeah, I'm thankful for it.
zero. Well, Jason, I'm glad you had that vacation. I personally only plan one vacation a year with other people. It's a camping trip, and
Hmm.
I can still go back to my trailer by myself, and we share a couple of meals and call it good. And because
Right?
I don't think I could do a cruise with that many people to start with, let alone that
Yeah,
many people that I actually knew. But anyway, we'll have other conversations about that later. Let's dive
yeah, yeah.
in and spend the rest of our time today talking about the Vision Pro. Now, we've got a bunch of resources, and I'm more up to speed on this than Jason is because he doesn't get the massive cruise Wi-Fi package that would allow him to stream the
At all.
45 and 2 hour videos. So, um, but the resources I would recommend are there was a really good review by The Verge, which I thought was very balanced. Brian Tong labeled his epic review. It was
Right.
pretty epic. MKBHD continues to release content. Like just yesterday, he released a video talking about what he thought the Vision Pro is missing. And
Hmm.
then both Cult of Mac and Joanna Stern had good reviews. So all of those links to those will be in the show notes. And I just want to be clear that unless Jason tells me something I don't already know, I have not gone in to get the demo on this in the Apple Store. I
Okay.
think I'm getting close to sacrificing getting dressed in real clothes and driving to an Apple store to go through the
Putting on
demo.
shoes, right?
Yeah. Actually taking my truck on more than a 5 minute drive and going to do that. But I don't think you've been in to get a demo yet either, have you?
No, no, I hadn't, and I thought about it, but I really expected you to have one scheduled by now.
Yeah. Well, not yet. So I got to make it work. And I think I might have done it this week if, again, we weren't dealing with all of these colds and viruses and
Right,
stuff like that.
right.
So, but I want to go through some of these general discussion points, and let's start with everybody was concerned about the weight because it is one of the heavier heavier virtual reality headsets out there. And right, I mean, it's made of
Hmm.
glass and aluminum. It's not plastic,
Right.
right? And that's why we were joking around that it looks like ski goggles, is because it's definitely doesn't have the whole front covered with a piece of plastic and some things like that. And it is a little bit heavier, but most everyone is saying yes, you notice when you put it on, but you get used to it really fast. And I haven't heard a lot of people complain about not being able to use it for more than like a half hour, as long
Hmm.
as they're using the afterthought strap. So there's two straps that come in the box. There's this really fancy one that looks like a knit sock, and it's all, you can tell Apple designed it, right? And
Right.
it goes on super easy, and you twist a dial and it tightens it up. That one is not comfortable. They said that is the one that you really can't use for long periods of time. And then almost as an afterthought, they have two straps of Velcro, basically. One that runs
Yeah.
along the back of your head and one that runs over the top of your head. Both of those are adjustable. And everybody says, oh, you put that on and you're fine. It's way more comfortable.
Because it's taking all of the weight from it resting basically on the bridge of your nose or your
Right.
your face right there. So even though it's light, still with something constantly sitting there, you're going to feel it after a few hours of use. So this
Right.
takes all of that weight to mostly the top of the strap, I'm assuming, right?
Right. And the other thing about that first strap, the nice fancy one, is that you're turning this dial to tighten it and it's sucking
Hmm.
it into your face. Right. And so you're getting a bunch of extra pressure on your face. You're thinking you need to make it as tight as possible so it doesn't move around. So yeah, of course it is. And then it's resting funny on your cheekbones. And so
Right.
anyway, so from a weight and comfort standpoint, it is a first gen product, right? But it sounds like that's
Yes,
not as big of a deal as other people thought it was going to be.
that
And
makes sense.
now, the other thing, I just mentioned this, right? First gen hardware
Right.
and first gen software, first gen operating system. Now, it is based on iPad OS, and we'll talk
It
about that
is.
later, but it's still first gen. There are going to be bugs and glitches. And a few of the podcasters I talked to said you hit something and you realize, oh, that's a bug.
Hmm.
And Apple probably knows it's a bug and still needed to ship it, right?
Yeah.
Because they just couldn't get to everything. I mean, one of the obvious things was if you forgot your passcode on the Vision Pro, they hadn't built in a way for you to reset it yourself. You had to take it into a store or ship it into AppleCare. I thought that was
Wow.
kind of funny.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
why would you be? I mean, I guess if you're sharing this across people or something like that, or you put it in, I don't know. But anyway, there are definitely bugs and glitches. There are limitations.
Hmm.
And the other thing is expect lots of changes and improvements as Apple gets feedback. There already was a beta released, a 1.1 beta. And if I saw correctly yesterday, they actually released full 1.0.3, which introduces the ability to reset the device without your passcode.
Okay.
So,
So there
yeah.
have been
So,
updates already.
yep.
That's good.
Yep.
And hopefully continue weekly
Yeah.
or every other week or something like that.
Yeah. So, I don't think this is going to be like other things where it's going to be months and months and months. I think they're going to iterate quickly. And then I would assume we're going to see Vision OS 2.0 at WWDC, right? I
Yeah.
mean, that's coming up in June.
Right. Right. So yeah, I mean it's a good thing that you don't have to wait. We knew that this was, like we keep saying, a beta product. We knew this wasn't for the general public. This is gonna be for developers and stuff like that. So I could imagine it moving pretty quickly, fixing bugs and compatibilities with different other types of software and things like that. So yeah, that's pretty good news actually. So let's talk about the pass through mode, right? This is where you're not just, we talked about this on the episode where we spoke about the difference between AR and VR and mixed reality and things like that. So pass through allows you to be able to communicate and um, function in the real world with these goggles on, right? It lifts that veil and you can see through. Now, the difference is you're not actually seeing the real world. You're seeing camera footage of the outside world from cameras on the
Right.
outside of the device, which is
I,
different from most other headsets.
I don't think you can, right? I don't think you can
Yeah,
see through those glasses. I mean, we joke around about them looking like ski goggles, but I don't think they're transparent in any of
right.
their modes. So you are not seeing outside of the
Yeah,
glass. And I think that's why this is probably the most important thing for Apple to get right.
right, right. And from what we're seeing on the reviews, that it is fine, right? You told me about Marquez Brownlee playing ping pong. Now, this is something that you just don't see on other devices, right? This is the quality that Apple gives. So very low latency. Um, One of the things that I know that gives people that motion sickness is the delay from seeing the outside world, or even when you're in a virtual world, is having a delay from motion, right? You reach for something and a millisecond later your virtual arm reaches forward or something like that, or you walk or you turn left or you turn right, and that's that delay, right? Your mind is telling you should be seeing a certain angle, and then 2 or 3 seconds, not 2 or 3 seconds because that's forever, but a few milliseconds later you're actually seeing that angle, and it causes people to be sick.
Right. And Apple's claiming 12 milliseconds of
Right.
latency, which is super low. And one of the connected hosts can't even ride in the back of a car or he gets car sick,
Really?
and has used this extensively and has not gotten motion sickness from it.
Right. And that was my main deal, was when we saw that, was, are people really going to be able to wear this for hours? Because again, I told you with the PlayStation VR, I can play a game for maybe about 45 minutes or something before I start feeling like I'm on fire. And that's how I experienced that motion sickness. So very low latency. Um, People aren't complaining about being sick, and it looks like Apple kind of nailed this,
Yeah.
on this beta device, on this first, generation of this device. So it's only going to improve. It's only going to get better.
Yeah, I mean, all of the other things you can work through and you can tell people it's coming, but if they put it on and it makes them sick,
Yeah,
that's that's a dead stop, right?
yeah, yeah.
So
They
it sounds
probably
like they've
won't deal with it.
right,
Yeah,
right. It'd be returned. I think it will be interesting to see what the return rate is eventually on this. But
yeah.
one of the things about this is I've heard that it's almost like there's no real user interface in this, that the user interface is really your real world, right? Because you're putting app icons or content or apps or whatever up in your living room or whatever
Hmm.
environment that you're in, right? And there's no real user interface. And so I've heard a few things. One, Brian Tong, for example, in his video was using Siri a ton for dictation, to open apps, to close apps, to do a lot of his navigation.
Hmm.
Now, the main navigation is eye tracking and finger gestures, a lot of pinch and hold and to scroll and stuff like that. And so it seems like they've done a really good job. Now, what I've heard is that the native Vision Pro apps get that eye tracking down to a T. It's basically perfect. Everything is set so that if you look at the X and pinch your fingers, it's going to close the window. If you look at the corner and pinch and grab and drag, it's going to expand the window, right? Those are the kind of
Which is
gestures that you
crazy
have.
to me. Yeah,
Yeah, it's
yeah.
just nuts. But what I have heard is that the iPad compatible apps, which are in another section, right? And they are
Hmm.
by far the majority of the apps that you're going to use on the Vision Pro right now. Even some of Apple's own apps are not Vision Pro native, like Calendar and Maps. They're the iPad versions.
Right.
Fine, right? That's a little bit of an escape hatch there, but it's not
And
quite
they're
as
good
good.
versions. They're good
They are,
versions. You don't need the Mac version to be able. They're really
right?
functional versions.
But
I'm
that
a little biased. I love
navigation,
my iPad.
yeah, no, but they are. But that navigation is just not built for those, right? And if you
Right.
think about somebody just checked the box and said, yes, let my iPad app go into Vision Pro, maybe the targets aren't big enough, right? So the
Yeah.
close the window is super small or something like that, right? And so there's a little bit of that there. And you have to get used to the fact that whatever I'm looking at is what's going to be active. That's what's going to be in focus.
Hmm.
If I'm looking at a control and I move my hands, that's control is what's going to happen. And so I have heard some people say that, we're used to looking at something, getting our mouse close or our trackpad close, and then we can look away and still deal with it. You can't
Right.
do that in Vision Pro because the minute you look away, the eye tracking is so good that the minute you look away, it's off target.
Right.
So, you got to think about that
So
just a
you have
little
to
bit there.
adjust your workflow a little bit, how
Yeah.
you use things just in general. Yeah.
Yeah, and one of the reviews that I read, they let their daughter, who's in her early 20s, I think it was, or something like that, try this out, and there was zero learning curve, none, for her to
Okay.
figure out how to use it, right? And so that's a
Yeah.
positive thing. And then the other thing I just wanted to bring up about navigation is that obviously there's no Face ID because your face is
Yep.
covered with this giant mask, but they're using Optic ID. And so when you do a setup, they're scanning your retinas, and that's what they're using in place of Face ID. So to make
Yep.
purchases, to authorize, to unlock, all of that kind of stuff. So I think that's pretty cool. Just getting them to another type of biometric authentication.
Right. Right. So, but I'm wondering if Optic ID, if it changes, you know what I mean? I guess as far as like if you develop some kind of condition or something with your with your with your retinas and
Yeah.
or just any kind of change in your vision, or they get damaged or something. Um, I'm sure there's a secondary where you can put in a password, go in and re-add your optic
Yeah.
ID, or redo all that. So I guess that's just a worry
Yeah.
that I guess is not really necessary. So well,
Yeah. I mean, I would assume it's like your Face ID, right? If something really happens
right.
and you needed to change up your Face ID, then you could. So,
Yeah, you can still get in with your password, passcode, and then adjust your Face ID or something like that.
yeah. Battery life is better than expected, although it's still pretty terrible. So, they were adding like 30 minutes onto the what Apple advertised, so they could get 3 hours instead of 2.5, and it takes about
Okay,
an
so
hour and
it's
a
a little
half to
better,
charge the battery pack. Yeah, but it's still you still have a hard time getting through most 3D movies, right? I mean,
right?
most 3D movies are going to be 3 hours plus or something like that. So they
Yeah,
still need to work on that. You can get the extra battery packs, and I've seen people say that yes, you can plug the battery pack into another external battery. So that's probably what I would end up doing instead of buying a second battery pack, is just get a really nice external battery, the USB-C to USB-C, and rather do that, because you also can't hot swap, right? If
right,
you as soon as you disconnect the battery, it's shut down. So not good.
right, right. So I guess you're right though, and if you think about it, the majority of people are still going to use this at home, right? Nobody's going to really be going skiing right now, or on the subway, or really using this out in the real world yet. You know, I still think that's maybe a year or two away. Now, there's going to be some people testing it, testing their apps that they build and things like that. But for the masses, you're going to be at home anyway. So maybe multiple batteries is not really a good idea right now, just an external power source.
Well, I want to see what happens when the hype dies down, because I mean, I have podcasters I listen to have used it on the train
Hmm.
on the East Coast, and really like that idea. And then the concept of you using it for travel, I think, is pretty amazing, because I can
Yeah,
just take a MacBook Air with me and then have a bunch of real estate, which we're going to talk about here in a minute. So, in my hotel room or wherever I am, and I don't need to worry about having a bigger laptop or some of that kind of stuff. So, I think that
right.
use case may allow us to see it a little more out in the wild.
Yeah.
The other one, I mentioned this about apps, the iPad compatible versus natives. The
Hmm.
coolest app I saw was in Brian Tong's review, when he pulled up the NBA app and basically
Hmm.
put the game we wanted to watch in this giant screen in the center. And then he had like 6 or 8 games running simultaneously around that one, and a stat sheet.
NBA games.
And NBA games. Yeah. So this is the native NBA app that they have put out. And so we
Okay.
had all of this running. And then if he wanted to switch out between games, he just looked at it and pinched or whatever, and it would swap that game with the one in the main screen, so he could jump back and forth like halftime, or whatever the case may be.
Okay.
It was really cool. If you haven't seen that part of his demo, I thought that's what I'd like to see, right? The ability to do multiple things at the same time, right? To have more than one game going. I'm not a big basketball person, but I might want to watch, a couple of different college football games at the same
Right.
time, or some
Right.
my son would probably have 3 or 4 soccer games going at the same time too. So
Yeah.
now, Jay, the other big thing coming out of this is, because it's a computer, and in our world today, you can't have a computer that can't do video chats or
Yeah.
video calls, right? Is how in the world do I do a video call on Vision Pro? So talk to us about that.
Yeah. So, and I mentioned it's when we talked about it before. It's using this what Apple's calling persona, and from what I'm seeing by the reviews, in my own personal opinion, it doesn't look good. Right. So you have a set of goggles on your face, so it's obscuring your face from anyone in the room. Um, what it does is it shows on the screen on the outside a live recording of your eyes to them on the outside. But if you're doing a video chat with someone, you sit on a Zoom call or a FaceTime call, it creates an avatar of your face. Doesn't look natural. Doesn't look. It looks like the worst video game version of yourself, but still usable, still recognizable as you. So, um, yeah. So it scans your face, it scans your eyes and all of that, and it gives you the persona, the avatar of yourself, gives that same emotion. So if you're reacting to something, or if you're looking a certain way, or frowns and things like that, it shows all of that. Just again, it's pretty much a video game version of yourself, and I think that's something that I've seen, um, that Apple should improve on, and they will. I'm certain they will.
Yeah, and so I'm not as against it as you are. I think a lot of them have
Right,
looked pretty close,
and
or
they
enough,
they
close
are
enough,
clarifying that
right?
this is still a beta too. Apple is saying that
Correct.
this is still in beta. Yeah.
And apparently, in the beta Vision OS that they released, there were significant improvements to what you
Okay.
could do with the persona, to how they looked compared to you. And I was listening to one of the podcasts, and Mike Hurley, his mouth doesn't move on his persona, and I think it's because his
Mhm.
beard and his mustache are pretty much are close to the same color as his lips, and so he has a
Right.
hard
Right.
time if he goes like that, really opens his mouth, it'll move.
Right.
But they have built right in a way to get feedback on personas. So basically, you're in the persona and you say, provide feedback on my persona. And then it asks you if you're willing to upload the photo that the Vision Pro took of you and your persona. And then you can also give the feedback about what's wrong with it. Right. And so
Wow. Now
they're
that's cool.
definitely focused on this, and they're already making changes. So they're committed to this. And I have seen more people come around to this. Like if you see Brian Tong's call, the stripe he has in the middle of his hair came across great, right? I mean,
Okay.
you can definitely tell that it's the person that it's supposed to be, right?
Yes.
If you know
I
them,
can tell.
if you know
Yes.
them at all, yeah. Now the other
Right.
good thing about this that people have mentioned is that also it means that once you set up your persona, if you have a video call at 7 a.m. in the morning, you don't have to worry about being up and presentable, right? Because you're just going to hop
Right.
on and it's
And
your
it'll stick to
persona
that.
that's going to come through. Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah.
So that is pretty cool. So I'm wondering almost now, and I hadn't looked at the specs on this. We're just getting back, so I'm going to dive more into it today. But if it's basically giving a 3D model of a photo, right? Of a flat photo, which may be part of the problem. I thought that maybe it would take some kind of 3D scan of you, or maybe you can incorporate the phone using with the 15 Pro, using that new mode where you can record for it to get a better 3D model of your face. So this is taking a flat photo and making a 3D image of yourself,
Well,
which
it's
could be
either a flat
contributing to
photo
that weirdness.
it's either a flat photo or it's video. It's something directly in the Vision Pro, right? So, yeah, I mean, it might be
Okay.
nice to use that super nice camera that you have on the 15 to be able to get a
Right,
better
right.
thing of this, but it's all done in the Vision Pro right now. So,
Okay.
but it's
Yeah, which
version 1.
could be the problem. Yes.
Here's the thing. This is all version 1, and pretty much
Right.
everything except for the virtual keyboard that pops up if you need it. Pretty much everything people have said is absolutely usable in a V1 product.
Yeah.
That's a big deal.
Yeah.
That's a really big deal.
It is. It is really close to prime time as any other company has made, right? We talked about
Right.
this has been around for years, and this is a product that Apple feels that is pretty much ready for prime time, right? I we talked
Yeah.
about the pricing and stuff, pricing people out, pricing the average consumer and stuff out on purpose so you can get it in the hands of the people that need it. But no, I'm complaining about certain things, but yeah, this is an actual usable product right now, and it's in its
Yeah.
first gen mode, its first gen release.
Yep. Well, I want to wrap up this part of the conversation, and then I want to get into secret sauce and magic sauce, whatever you want to call it. But
Right,
let's talk about kind of the two sides of usage for a device like this: media consumption and productivity. So,
right,
media consumption, I've heard people say this is the best TV I've ever owned
right,
because the pixel density is like some ridiculous amount of pixels in it's like 3 gazillion pixels per square inch in each eye,
right.
right? And so from a media consumption standpoint, you want to go watch something like Avatar in 3D, whatever the case may
Some
be.
nature videos, yeah, some of those 4 or
Yeah.
5K nature videos.
Yep. Absolutely. Your city walkthroughs that you love so much, if YouTube will
Yeah.
come out with an app, if they would do those, they would look super, super awesome. So watching movies and stuff like that is fantastic. The concept of environments, and this is where you can use the digital crown and dial into like Joshua Tree or on the moon or a mountaintop in Hawaii. There's um, Yosemite. There's several,
Hmm.
and there's more coming, right? But those environments they said are fantastic, and I've heard a lot of people. Like I was listening to Mac Power Users yesterday, and he said, "You know what? I have started to associate Joshua Tree or whichever one it was. I can't remember which one he said with my writing." So he dials in to that. He opens the Notes app because it's native, and he dictates his articles or whatever
Right.
else he's trying to write. And so it's now put him in this mindset where when he sees that environment, he knows what he's supposed to be doing. And so from a focus
Right.
standpoint, that's super duper cool. But those ones that Apple provides can be used anywhere across the system. And then you've got Disney Plus that has Avenger Tower. They have Tatooine, where you can sit in a speeder, and
Right.
a few others. But those environments are only usable within the Disney Plus app in the platform, which makes no sense. And I was listening to ATP the other day, and they were like, take my monies. Just allow people to go in and build custom environments. They're going to have to
Yep.
do it, but I'll pay $5 or $10 to have an environment where I can dial in and just sit and meditate or just
Right.
sit and think or just sit and do a particular activity. And I got thinking, you know what? Absolutely. That is absolutely what we want,
Right.
is to
Right.
be able to
The
do some of that
environment
kind of
would you
stuff.
would
So,
be the most productive in. Yeah. Yeah. I get
yeah.
it.
So what I'd like them to do is expand that out, let people create their own, and then let me use my own videos. You were talking about this in relation to personas, but you know
Hmm.
some of the pictures, some of the panoramas that I take when I'm up on a mountain, right? On my
Yep.
bike. Let me do some of my own videos or my own pictures and make environments out of those. That will come, I think, right? Unless they
Yes.
do the watch face thing, which they better not do the watch face thing. But that would be awesome. So, from a media consumption thing, this is the best way to view photos. It's the only way people have said they'll ever watch 3D movies because that totally flopped, right? I mean, that went absolutely nowhere, especially on TVs because it was such a horrible experience. So, this
Right.
is the way people. So, if you want the best media consumption device, this might be it because shockingly, the speakers that they're having, everybody is saying are fantastic as well. And then, of course, you
Yep.
compare
I've
it with
heard that.
AirPods Max or AirPods Pro or whatever the case may be. So, I mean, if you're going to go out and spend $4,000 for a TV because you want a super awesome TV, if you're by yourself, this might be an alternative.
Right. Right. Or if you want that huge TV and you
Yeah.
live in a small apartment, this,
Yeah.
yeah, this would be a really, really good alternative to that. So,
Yep. And then gaming wise, Apple Arcade is in there. There's a whole bunch of titles. Brian Tong was playing Sonic. Thought that was pretty cool. I've seen that you can
right.
play that Apple Arcade version of NBA 2K. You can pair a controller. He had, I think it was a PS controller paired in when he was doing that. So,
Hmm.
from a media consumption standpoint, yeah, I mean, seems to be great.
Right. Right. And I'm hoping Apple doesn't wall off themselves from the rest of the gaming industry, right? I'm hoping
Yeah,
eventually they'll be able to, because there's thousands of really good games. There's so many good games out. There's already sequels to those games that are available now that Apple should definitely they should allow on this device
yeah,
because we talked
I
about
agree.
Apple making a push in gaming before, virtual gaming too. They should
Yep.
they should definitely dip their toes in that.
Now, let me wrap this up about using it for work or for productivity things. And we'll talk about this a
Yeah.
little more in the post show. In the post show, we're going to talk about one of the comments that's been made more than once is, can this replace my iPad? Or is this the best iPad that Apple has ever made? And Jason's going to shake his head and say, absolutely
Right.
not. But I want to talk about that. But
Not yet.
using it for work, there's plenty of apps, right? Now, I have heard that Microsoft, their 365 apps are in there, but they're more limited than their iPad counterparts. And so they've got to
Hmm.
get some parity going there. The built-in digital keyboard is garbage. You just can't do it, right? It's easier
Yeah.
to use Siri or dictation, but you can pair a Bluetooth keyboard and trackpad or mouse with the device. And so you can sit
Right.
there and do it. Now, if you want to dial in and completely work in one of those cool environments, you can't see the keyboard. So you have to dial the environment out and only have it at like 60% in order to be able to see the keyboard that you're working on. But you
Right.
can do that. And then connect with Mac. So if I were to had the Vision Pro on and were to look down at my MacBook, I'd get a little pop-up that says connect. I pinch the connect button, my MacBook screen goes black, and my MacBook screen is now sitting in front of me in virtual space. And I can make it as big as I want it to be. So this is
Yeah.
another place where people said that's the escape hatch. So if there are apps that you need, and they're on your Mac, like I've watched people like Brandon Butch was editing in Final Cut on his
Yeah.
Vision Pro. And I've seen multiple people showing that because you get this massive screen. Now you only get one. Don't know why that's the case. I have 3 monitors here right now. But if I were to connect, I would only get one, but you can make it as big as you want, but the resolution doesn't change. So it's not like I get more real estate, right? I
Right.
can't make it 75 inches and put 10 windows and have them all be big enough. They're going to be the same relative size as they are on my 27-inch monitor, right? So it definitely is doable. And there are a lot of people that are saying, yeah, this is one of the great reasons to do this. And this is why if I'm on an airplane, and I was thinking about somebody made this comment about MKBHD that maybe he's under embargo but wants to edit on an airplane. Well, he can't
Hmm.
have that up on his MacBook and have somebody else look and see what he's doing, but he could just
Right. Right.
connect his MacBook and put it up on that giant screen over the seats in front of him and go to work and do his
Yeah.
editing.
I
So
think
let's
this
talk.
is it's a huge tool for productivity. Right. We
Yeah.
knew that from the start. We knew that from the promotional videos that they released. That man, this is going to be huge for productivity. And then when you throw in the gaming and the recreational stuff, the entertainment and stuff like that, it really does make this device worth it in its current version, right? If you were
Yeah.
looking to, like we said earlier, get a TV, buy a PlayStation 4, a PlayStation 5, or with the extra controller, and you needed a desk and you needed all of this extra space, but you live in this little apartment. This is the way to go.
Yeah. Let me wrap this up by talking about why I think Apple's going to succeed here more so than others. Not just because I'm an Apple
Right.
fan and I have all of their stuff, but this is the ecosystem. There is no comparison to the Apple ecosystem, right?
Hmm.
So let's say all of the Meta, Quest 3, and the others, let's say they could all do content consumption as well as the Vision Pro, which they can't, right? Their quality is just not there, right? Let's say they could. Well, then maybe you have this debate over who buys them if all you want is an entertainment device, right?
Yeah.
But if I start talking about I want to use this as an integral part of my life and my workflow, and the purpose of our tech show is helping people get more out of life with their tech, then Apple is going to succeed because all of their stuff plays nice. Now,
Yeah.
Marquez was saying that like you can't see phone notifications on your Vision Pro, so you have to take the headset off to kind of deal with it on the phone.
Yeah.
So they got to work on some of that kind of stuff. But just the fact that I can put my whole Mac in my Vision Pro, I can do most of
Yeah.
my phone functions in the Vision Pro, and I can pull all the iPad apps that are allowed into the Vision Pro. So all of a sudden, the
Yeah.
Vision Pro, more so than any of Apple's other devices, touches everything. And that's
Yeah.
continuity and handoff and the power of their ecosystem. And so is Samsung going to go in and say, we're going to make a reality headset and we're going to work with Microsoft and allow you to connect your Windows PC into our headset? Probably not.
No,
If they did, what would that
they won't.
experience be like? Right? So this is why I think Apple's going to succeed here, where I don't think anybody else. No one else is going to be able to put together this whole experience. Now, you have to decide if the Apple ecosystem is right for you and if you can afford
Right.
to be in the Apple ecosystem, because it's going to be a couple years before this device is mainstream affordable. And if you wanted to have all of that stuff, if I had a MacBook Pro and a Vision Pro and an iPhone Pro and an iPad Pro,
Hmm.
I mean, you're talking what, 10K at least?
It's not going to be a
Um,
small investment.
this is where I think they're going to succeed. Okay. And we're going to get to this here in a
Right.
second as to where we are on the Vision Pro. This, in my opinion, is why this device is different. Maybe it'll be like the Apple Watch, where the Apple Watch was kind of the jack of all trades when it started. And now they've really narrowed down what the Apple Watch is good at. It's good at fitness and it's good at notifications,
Hmm.
right? I mean, those are the two things. Maybe some of this stuff will be narrowed down, but I could see it getting really good at, even better at media consumption, things like collaborative media consumption, where two of you could watch, even if you were in the same room or
Hmm.
not in the same room, right? Being able to watch a movie together on Vision Pro. I can see it getting way better at productivity, because this ecosystem and continuity integration, they're just scratching the surface.
Yeah. No, I'm with you. And no one does this better than Apple, right? When you take just a single device, how the hardware and the software just works perfectly together, right? We always talk about how battery technology hasn't improved, but Apple's figured out a way to make their software and hardware work perfectly in perfect harmony to get the most out of the battery life, right? You take multiple devices, right? You can unlock your MacBook with your watch and things like that. Um, yeah, I can only see it just getting better. Now, when this device is a mainstream device, second generation, third generation, I can see more compatibility with Windows and other platforms and stuff like that. But even with it being compatible, you're still not going to get the
No.
perfection of continuity of having it, all of these Apple devices in sync, right? That's just their main selling point.
One thing I didn't mention is that when I connect my MacBook,
Hmm.
my trackpad and keyboard work on the Mac screen in Vision Pro, but it also works on all the other apps, whether they're iPad apps or whether they're Vision Pro apps. So if I
Right.
take my trackpad and go left to a Vision Pro app, it just jumps right to that app, and I can completely interact
Yeah.
with the Vision Pro app using my MacBook keyboard. That's the kind of stuff, right? That right there, that is magic sauce.
Right.
All right, Jason. So all of this, how much is the Apple reality? Well, we're going to call this the Apple virtual reality distortion field.
Virtual reality
How much is
distortion.
that impacting your life right now?
So it's still a no go, right? I really want to get my hands on one, right? Even if it's just for a day or two, right? And I'm not talking about scheduling to go and sit down and having someone guide it, but I just want to get my hands on one to really get my experience out of it, right? Not a guided experience, but I can get the same job that I'm doing now with the equipment that I have, even though it's a little, right? I have my iPad over here. I have my MacBook sitting on the floor and I'm using that and I have a Zoom, which the Zoom is getting a little delayed now since we've been on for an hour or so, but I can get it done now and save 5K. I think that's the best thing for me, at the moment. So, but not having the hardware, it hasn't taken me totally out of the game, right? I've been thinking about ways to create content for the Vision Pro without having a Vision Pro. You mentioned earlier those walking videos and things like that. So I actually considered maybe getting an iPhone 15 Pro and start, recording some things. I thought about it too while we were on a cruise ship. There's no virtual cruise tours, right? There's people will label it virtual cruise ship tour or something, and it's just them walking around with their camera. But I thought about getting one of those Sony cameras that films like 360, right? That people make the virtual content in for, and um, just doing that, and maybe being able to turn out a little more income from YouTube or something to pay for cruises,
Yeah.
just to go and record a cruise ship or something. I thought that would really be cool. It's, of course, it'll start off really slow, but
Well,
Yeah,
here,
I've been
think about
thinking of
this.
in different ways.
Think about this. Here's a practical thing. Let's say you got the 15 Pro Max so you could do the better
Hmm.
video, right? The stabilization, all of that kind of stuff.
Right,
Think about being able to record and upload to Pop Life's TikTok or Instagram accounts,
right,
high quality. And if somebody wanted to view it in spatial computing space, right? The farmer's
right,
market. Or like that event that I saw your post from with those really cool cars and stuff that you were at
right,
over this
right,
last little bit, that kind of stuff. Just think about how cool some of that stuff would be from an advertising standpoint. And maybe there's a challenge for you.
right. Yeah, I
Wendy,
didn't
he's
think
going to
about
buy a
that,
new phone. Just telling you, it's coming.
but yeah. Well, I told you we were going to play iPhone Shuffle this year, but I'm thinking sooner rather than later. Maybe not wait until September. Maybe getting to
Yeah.
jump on this whole creating content and stuff. So, yeah, we'll see. Maybe some gadgets for family content too. That'll
Yeah.
give us a
Yeah,
little boost.
for sure. Well,
So, what about
I'm going to
you? How
tell
are you
you,
feeling?
I am, if I had the money, I would have bought one at this point.
Right.
So,
Yeah.
and I think it is some Apple distortion field, and I think some of this hype is going to die down, right? But if I think about my personal and my professional workflows, so my personal stuff, I sit for about an hour, and I'm writing in my journal and doing personal study, and I need somebody to create an immersive environment like of one of our temples. That would be super
Hmm.
cool, right? Where I could just dial in and have the temple sitting behind me and just sit and do my
Right.
my my spiritual scripture study stuff. That would be super cool. Um, Other than recording this show, right? If I think about my consulting work and all of the other stuff that I do, the editing that I do for this show, and all of those kinds of things can all be done on a Vision Pro. And those of you that have listened to this or my other podcasts know that we are trying to downsize big time, and
Yep.
hopefully we'll end up in an RV. But if we don't, we're probably going to end up in a tiny home and or something much much smaller. Right now, I've got my whole office, and this office is you know 12 by 12 or whatever it is, right? And so
Right.
I've got plenty of space. I can have two desks in here, one for each purpose, that kind of stuff. We downsize, I don't have that. And so if I think about the ability to use the secret sauce, right? The fact that all my
Right.
stuff would
Right.
work together, I can put my Mac up on a giant screen. I could actually leave my Mac in the trailer, connect the screen, right? Leave the Mac in the trailer, take a Bluetooth
Hmm.
keyboard and trackpad out to
Yep.
the picnic table at the campground site and work, because
Yeah.
it doesn't have to be next to your Mac, right? And so I could do all of that kind of stuff. And so I only see more ways that I would end up using this versus less.
Right.
And same thing for consuming content. Now, the guest mode's not great. So if Karen wanted to watch a 3D movie in it or something like that, it's a little wonky on some of that kind of stuff. But same thing. I mean, no matter what RV I get, I'm not going to have a really nice big TV. That's not the
Yeah.
purpose of having that kind of stuff. But that doesn't mean I'm not going to want to watch the second Dune movie, right? And how cool would it be
Right.
for me
Right.
to throw the Vision Pro in my backpack and get up on top of a mountain and dial in
Really.
Dune, right, from the peak of a mountain and stuff like that. Implication of that in the post show. So if you guys want to hear us talk about this compared to iPads and that kind of stuff, stick around for the post show. So yeah,
Yeah.
I'm in. It's just a matter of, can I make it realistically work? It's still expensive. So
Right. Right. So you talked about like going, sitting outside your trailer or just taking a little short distance or whatever. That's even if you need the power of the Mac, right? Most of the time, if you're just
yeah,
taking notes or doing, like you say, your scripture study or whatever, all you would need is the Vision Pro. You wouldn't
yeah,
even need that extra power from having it, tethered to the
right.
Mac or whatever.
Keyboard and a trackpad would be
Right. Yeah.
nice,
Take a tiny keyboard like
but
I
that's
have right
it.
here in front of me, a tiny
Yeah,
Bluetooth keyboard with a trackpad on it. And,
yep,
that's perfect. This thing is flat, like flat, flat. So,
yeah, yeah. I've got one that's the size of my iPad Mini. It's a
yeah.
Logitech Keys to Go, so perfect.
Yeah. Does it have a
Well,
trackpad on it?
no, it doesn't have a trackpad, but
Okay.
I
Because
think I
I'm
could
like,
deal
that'll
without
be a
that.
tiny trackpad.
Yeah, no, I think I could deal without the trackpad for that kind of stuff, not for editing and some of those
Right.
kinds of things, but most of my work is PowerPoint and my
Yeah,
personal
yeah,
stuff.
something
And
really
if I
light
think about
duty.
what I do for
You
my
don't need the extra
yeah, if I think about
power.
what I do for my clients, I could do it all on an iPad. That's the whole
Yeah,
point of the iPad conversation we've been having, and that we're going to have in the post show. So let's end with that.
yeah.
If you want to hear us talk about iPad versus Vision Pro, stick around for the post show. And we may also have a little bit of a rant from me about Nintendo Switch. So we'll see if we can get to that in the post show too. So stick around for that. Jason, I know you're just barely getting back. Have you thought about what we're going to cover next week?
There's a couple of things that I wanted to talk about. So I'm still weighing those options, but yeah, no definitive topic for next week. So it'll be a surprise for everyone.
All right. Well, until then, don't forget to check out the show notes. We'll have the links to the reviews that we recommend for the Vision Pro. There's going to be a lot more content. I'm sure we'll have some follow up going on. Make sure you subscribe to our YouTube channel. We've got some new stuff we want to try doing there. And that's it for me. Jason, you got a cool tech show closing for us?
Nope. I'm ready to go back on another cruise already. So I'll see you guys on the Lido deck.
By yourself, or maybe with Wendy, depending.
Yep. Just us this time around.
All right. Thanks, everybody, for listening, and stick around or hit that next video, which will be the post show.